that being memorization. And the motivation to do these tests is really all about grades. And I don't know if you've had the same experience as me, but when I finished my 4 years of undergrad, I couldn't tell you what I learned. I couldn't remember much of it either. And so I think this begs a question of what skills are students taking away from doing exams? Is it something they're going to encounter in their careers in science later on in their lives? What is it really contributing to? What is the point and purpose of doing exams? And as I mentioned, because there's no point other than demonstrating your learning, the motivation really is grades. And so I think we have this opportunity and a responsibility as instructors to help students develop into real contributing citizens in our society, and that we should really be moving them up the levels of Bloom's taxonomy to be able to apply and analyze and even evaluate. So let's really think about what they can do rather than what they know. So here I'm going to go through a whole slew of different ideas that I have done. And I'm going to go through them surface level, but I'm super happy to share anything with everybody at the end. And so the first one, and this is an area that I'm really passionate about, is community service learning. So for those who are not familiar, it's attaching a project or an assessment to community service, where students, we partner with community partners, and then both get to benefit from the experiences. So this was done in an introductory microbiology course, a second-year undergrad course in our health science program. And we partnered with Let's Talk Science, which is an outreach program that teaches science to youth all across Ottawa and areas. And so in this task, students created an activity for Let's Talk Science. And just a note, Let's Talk Science likes to target underrepresented and lower socioeconomic status schools in rural areas, as well as northern communities in Canada. And so they're trying to make science more accessible to everybody, essentially. So this was a class of 85 students, and students could volunteer to do this as a task, as a replacement, a grade for any of the other assessments in the class that they did. And I usually would get about maybe 10 to 12 students who are doing this task. So just to break it down a little bit further, the learning outcomes were that they conduct a little bit more research on a topic in micro, so that they dive deeper into the content, and that they really learn how to teach and simplify a task, because what better way to learn something than to teach it to some grade 5 students. And then you'll see along the bottom sort of the scaffolding of the assessment. So it starts with choosing their topic. They could choose any one they wanted. They do an outline and some research. And along the way, we consulted with Let's Talk Science partners to get some feedback on the activities. And then at the end of the semester, they actually did the activity with grade 5 kids who came to Carleton. And they had one more opportunity to make any edits based on that experience with the students. So here are some pictures from various days when the public schools came in. So here are our Carleton students who are explaining the activities to the kids who came in. This one was called a sneeze cannon, and they were all demonstrating activities or concepts relating to microbiology. So this was the sneeze cannon. This one up here is called the whoosh, where they spray to see how masks help to stop transmission of viruses. And down in the corner, we have some grade 5 students who are learning about the microbiome. And so this was a huge success, because both the young students got to see what science was like. They saw some role models. They got to come to the university, making it more accessible. And our students got to do something that is useful, because in the end, here's an example activity that they did. Let's Talk Science put their activities in their bank, and they send them out as kits to northern communities, so other students can do science as well. Another community service learning activity I do is volunteering. So this is in a diseases of aging course, and students can choose, again, to replace another task, to volunteer with any community organization related to the aging community. So they find their own placement. And here again, we're looking at learning outcomes like becoming, citizens, responsible citizens, learning how to do communicating and problem solving. And what I have them do is link it to the course content through an editorial piece or a blog. And in the end, they get to see how the content links to real world situations. So for example, if they volunteer with Dementia Society and we learn about the pathology of dementia in class, they can make the links between the two. And at the same time, they're contributing, and we give them co-curricular records on their transcripts at the end for this as well. And again, you can see they can choose where they can volunteer, and we have various feedback pieces before they submit their final projects. So here's an example block of somebody who did some volunteering online with the older community, and here they you can see that they make links to some of the literature and other course content that we had. The third community service learning project that I incorporated, this is into a master's level class, is with Briere Continuing Care, which is a post-acute care facility in Ottawa. And this course was called New Health Technologies. And in this one, they do an assessment of a technology for Briere Innovation, and it's technologies that they're considering piloting in their institutions, but they don't have many resources to be able to do the technology assessment themselves. So as a big project, a team project, I have the students do some collecting of lots of evidence. They do a literature review. And in between, we're consulting with the Briere team. And in the end, the deliverables are that they produce a website and a brief that they present to the Briere team. And they either recommend the technology or not to be adopted into Briere institutions. So again, they are collaborating with stakeholders, and they are having to do things like justifying evidence-based recommendations. And this actually gets used by the Briere Institute. So they're doing assessments not for a void or a vacuum, but it's being used by somebody. And so both parties benefit. So here's an example of what was produced. So here's just a piece of the brief that they created and presented to the Briere team on a technology. And then they also created websites where they broke down the various types of evidence that they collected some papers on, and they summarized for the team. So another high impact practice and authentic type assessment that's been very successful is, many of you may be familiar with course-based undergraduate research experience, or a CURE. So Tiny Earth has already developed curriculum for solving the antimicrobial resistance crisis. So it's a project that we had all of our 85 second-year students do in an intro micro course. And what they did in this course is they took soil samples. They get to choose where they get the soil samples from, and they isolate antibiotic-producing microorganisms, and they characterize them and identify them, which is shown here in my flow chart about how it works. And within these experiments, when they're characterizing the bacteria, they have a lot of opportunity to redo experiments. And so they're really getting a sense of what it's like to fail in science and how it's a part of doing science. And they troubleshoot, they figure it out. And at the very end, we do an authentic scientific science poster session like we would as scientists at a conference. And I have some pictures of how that went. You can see that we had a poster session here. This is with my partner, Neil, who's the lab coordinator. And students presented their poster. We had winners present their poster at the Health Sciences Research Day later in the year. And we even were able to bring some students to Wisconsin for the Tiny Earth Symposium, and they were able to meet the founder and present their poster there. So again, they're contributing to to solving the antimicrobial resistance crisis. So we're really engaged in this project. And when you have students coming in saying they don't want the semester to end, it's usually a good sign that they really have bought into that. Into the project. So just to show you a couple more that I have, Justin introduced the National case collection that's now with an STA. So I too am a huge proponent of case studies and I love them. But my partner, Dr. Broadbelt from Boston, and I decided we should take it up a notch. And she came up with this really great idea of why don't we have students write case studies instead? So this again was for a diseases of aging third year course. And they wrote case studies that were modeled after the bank cases. And so again, they get to choose their topic, they dive deeper into it, and they get a lot of feedback along the way. And I even have students who have come back from last year, they came to the course this year and tested out their case study with the course. And so there's lots of opportunity to link it to real life situations. And again, they're doing an assessment that's going to be used because we will be submitting the cases to the bank eventually. So here's an example of the case study that was done in the class from last year. They wrote one on polypharmacy, which is an interesting one that hasn't been done yet. I have two more to show you, so I'll just go through them quickly because I'd like you guys to think about how you might be able to incorporate some different kinds of assessments in your courses. This one was really targeting science literacy and communication, so you may have heard of science sketches. So this I did with a partner, Dr. Beaulieu from University of Ottawa. It was again in micro, and essentially students created this 2-minute video. So what they had to do, again, they get to choose their topic, right? It was scaffolded through storyboarding and writing scripts, and they got lots of feedback along the way. But converting it into a 2-minute video proved to be very difficult for them. And they had to sort of figure out from the literature what would be the most important things to show. And so I have an example video here that may or may not work. Let's give it a try.
The human microbiome has developed and changed since the day we were born. But how important is it to the immune system development that these microbes are introduced during a specific time period?
It has been stressed that the microbiome plays an important role in human health and the immune response. However, the introduction of these microbes at an early age is what ultimately allows the microbiome to function successfully in our day-to-day lives.
So it's just to give you an idea of what the students created, again, modeled after science sketches, which are short little 2-minute sketches on a very specific topic. So they got to dive deeper in something that they were interested in. And the last one I wanted to show you, so some of you may be familiar with Perusal, but I teach a second-year research methods course, and it has a workshop outside of the lecture time. There's 120 plus students in this course, and so we use this online social annotation tool, Perusal, where they would read a research article, because that's one of the skills that they struggle with the most, is feeling comfortable reading research. So they read different kinds of research articles, and they would socially annotate it to help each other out and see what others are picking out from the article. Then they would come to the workshop and do a journal club, as we would also do in science. So again, it's an authentic task, as we're really looking for those behaviors that we would want them to learn as scientists. And so this went on 5 times. It was like a feedback loop where they would read the article on Perusal and annotate it together, and then they would come to a workshop and complete some worksheets in teams and learn from each other. And at the very end, this culminated in a preprint peer review that they did at the end of the semester, where they evaluated a research article. And because we practiced so many times, they did a really fantastic job on this task. And so in the end, they really learned and showed how they could critically evaluate health research and the different kinds that I taught them throughout the semester. So for those who are unfamiliar, here's what Perusal looks like. We upload an article, and they can highlight different parts and then comment on each other's comments and upvote, and they can see what each other is saying and kind of learn how others are evaluating the research, which was really interesting. So I've talked enough, and now I'd like to ask you, hopefully you were paying attention and trying to figure out what were the common threads between all of those various activities. I know that there was a lot shown in a small amount of time, but we can put it together throughout the entire other examples that we've seen so far this afternoon. So perhaps you want to put in the chat for me, was there anything, what was sort of common between all of the assessment tasks? I'll let you take a second to think about it. Yes, there's definitely active learning involved. What else did they all seem to have in common? Yes, options and choice, right? So agency is definitely a key component of authentic assessment. So they'll become, more engaged when they get to choose. Other thoughts? Yeah, there was real world. Yeah, they had lots of stages. So it was scaffolded and there was opportunity for iteration and feedback again, which is like the real world, right? So tests are a one-off where you get often just one opportunity, which is not very realistic. Yeah, clear expectations. So I have outlines and rubrics created for all of these that we would talk about ahead of time. The learning outcomes are clear and there's alignment between the activity and the learning outcomes. Exactly. So authenticity, having a purpose as well. So there, we talked about meaningfulness being important in these alternative assessments, having agency. They did a lot of work with partners, so they learned professional skills and they worked with teams. And it was really iterative in nature. And you can hopefully see that the skills learned from these assessments were the transferable skills that we really want our students to learn. And they, of course, developed the knowledge at the same time as developing a lot of these transferable skills. So I see there's some questions. I'll get to them in just, I think I have 2 more minutes. So I'd like you to all just to take a minute to think about maybe an alternative assessment that you could try. So here's a little stepwise process to do that. And I'll give you a few minutes to think about it. And then if anybody wants to share, they can. So the first step is really thinking about what are the learning outcomes and the discipline-specific behaviors that you would want students to have leaving your class or be ready for when they start their careers in science. And in this, you can consider the level of thinking you would like them to be able to do. Would you like them to be able to apply or to evaluate or analyze? So what would a successful student in your field look like? Just take a moment to think about that. And what are authentic tasks in your field? So I gave the example of doing a science poster or doing a technology assessment for a hospital or teaching younger students about science and knowledge translation. So these are authentic tasks in our field. And so with these things in mind, think about what an authentic task then would look like, or an authentic assessment would look like for your field or for your course. And might that be something that you could try? So you're welcome to put ideas in the chat, or if you want to unmute and share, you can as well. And I'll just open the floor to any ideas. Sometimes we hear and see things and we're like, ooh, maybe I could do something similar, right, in my course. Yeah, so communicating science to lots of audiences is definitely an important skill. Any other thoughts? Does anybody have any ideas of their own that they might want to try, which can be taken from my ideas or not?
I think people are really
It's the proverbial Zoom problem of getting the crickets.
Yeah.
I'm glad I teach back in person now. I have to say, I love being able to walk up to students and to read students. Then they can't escape me. Okay, I'm seeing some ideas. Sometimes it takes a few minutes to think about it as well. So Leah did a proposal to purchase equipment. Yes, that is amazing.
Yeah,
Something like student created short videos in future courses. Yeah, so then I've had colleagues who use student created videos as actual content later on. That's a wonderful idea. Sorry, I think I was cutting you off, Deb.
No, actually, it was Lee. Sorry. I was just going to say I was teaching an automation course for biotechnology. And
Okay.
I had the students pick a piece of equipment and then do like as if they were presenting to their manager on how to buy the piece of equipment, what it would cost, what kind of support, all of that type of thing. So they had to learn about how the equipment worked, but also they learned how to source. So they basically did an RFP and then a presentation.
Oh, that's fantastic. Yes, I've had a colleague who teaches in biotech, and she has students as a project do a pitch to biotech companies. So it's, yeah, very authentic.
Definitely. I teach in literacy and basic skills now. And I actually have students give them the option to create one of the, for biology, the environmental cycles. So like the water cycle, etc. And one of the options they have is to create a video or a song for it. And I've actually had 3 or 4 students take me up on it. It's been really great.
That's fantastic. So sometimes we can start with like smaller pieces where, you know, doing it with 85 students might be too much, but I start with a handful and kind of pilot and see how it works. And then I can expand it and tweak from there. Well, thanks for your participation, everybody. And here's my email. So if you want to reach out to me and ask questions or want me to share anything, I'm super happy to do that.
Thanks, Laura, so much. One of the things I was thinking about while I was listening to you present is if students never take another course again in their life, what they're doing when they're doing authentic assessments with you, I think serves them for a very long time really well. So I think what you did is really inspiring, what you presented. Thank you so much.
Thank
So